hope you are all fine and miss all of you. Wishing to see you soon, inshallah. Today we are going to talk about a very important topic, which is cross-cultural communication. What about our goals today is to raise our awareness of culture, identify some barriers of communication, of cross-cultural communication, and discuss ways to overcome these barriers. Here we will discuss how to communicate across culture, definition, what are the components of communication, what is culture, what do we mean by culture, and what are the barriers which challenge our cross-cultural communication. What is cross-cultural communication? Pause and make short list of the groups to which you belong. Occupation, for example, I'm a teacher, a professor at the university. Status, for example, homeowner. Gender, female. Your hobbies, snowboarding. Component of communication. We have language elements, verbal and non-verbal communication, external elements such as cultural norms, relationship and context. Third, internal elements, purposes and attitudes. Effective communication with people of different cultures is especially challenging. Culture provides people with ways of thinking, ways of seeing, hearing and interpreting the world. Hence, the same words can mean different things to people from different cultures, even when they talk the same language. When the language are different and translation has to be used to communicate, the potential for misunderstanding increases. Who am I? A cross-cultural guessing game. We will guess a very... So, let's start. Read the following description and discuss with your partner to guess which country you think each represents. When I meet you, I may bow. You may ask my age, but I will be embarrassed if you ask me about my religion. And as a result of my embarrassment, I may laugh. I will pause for perhaps 20 seconds before answering, allowing time for a shared communication without words, non-verbal. If you become uncomfortable with my silence and say I'm sorry, I will apologize to show my wish to cooperate and will probably not look directly in your eyes when I'm answering. However, I wouldn't complain to tell you that your question about my religion is considered impolite. So, I am from, let's think about it, take 10 seconds. Yes, I'm hearing. He is from Japan. Very good. Am I? Example number 2. When people in my country greet, we say hello or good afternoon in English and are cheerful and courteous to show respect. Neglecting to greet someone is a sign of disrespect. With more than 250 ethnic groups, we have more than 250 languages. Thus, English is our official language, though less than 50% of people speak English. We do not pass things with our left hand alone, nor should we show the bottom of our foot to someone. The most vulgar gesture to me, however, would be to push the palm of the hand forward with the finger spread. We visit friends and relatives frequently and welcome unannounced guests. If we wish our children to leave the room while guests are visiting, we often wink at them. So, I am from. I know it's a little complicated, but when we try to analyze some indicators, we can easily discover this country. So, I am here from Nigeria. Thank you, this is fine. am I caveat. I know these are broad generalizations which do not necessarily represent individuals but are meant only to introduce you to some cultural practices of which you may be unaware. The goal is for you to understand the culture of the individual so that you may better communicate with people. Communicate well with people from different cultures. So what is culture? Culture is that which distinguishes one group from another. Culture is the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. A culture is a way of life of a group of people, the behaviors, beliefs, values, and symbols that they accept generally without thinking about them, and that are passed along by communication and imitation from one generation to the next one. Characteristic of culture. Culture is not inherent but learned. Cultures are rooted in deep-seated beliefs. Culture is the basis of self-identity and community, and finally culture are dynamic. We call it is Iceberg of Culture. We have two main components: surface culture, tangible, and deep cultural value and attitude and belief. See in this picture, culture is like an iceberg. Most of it is under the water of awareness. We cannot see it directly. We can see in the surface behavior which reflect beliefs, and under the water we can see values and thoughts patterns. If we know their values, we can explain their behaviors. It's a very important rule. If their behavior is different than ours, we often describe it both subjectively and negatively. So knowledge is very important to overcome all kinds of challenges concerning cultural communication. So we have here cultural communication balances. Number one, knowledge, to know well about other cultures, people, nations, behaviors, and so on. Second, we have empathy, understanding feeling and need of others. And finally, attitude, meaning trust, openness, honesty, and being non-judgmental. Problems of cultural differences. People in different countries have different ways to interpret events. They have different habits, values, and way of relating to one another. When they come across problems pops up, people tend to view their cultural practices right while others as wrong. This is called ethnocentrism. Gestures and body movement, beliefs, and practices related to human relationships are the two main factors that impact communication. To cultural communication. Ethnocentrism. Inability to accept another cultural worldview. My way is the best. That I have this belief that my way is the best, so I refuse to hear the other. Discrimination. Differential treatment of an individual due to minority status, actual and perceived. We just aren't equipped to serve people like that, so I will prevent them from their rights. Stereotyping, generalizing about a person while ignoring presence of individual differences. She's like that because she's Asian. All Asians are nonverbal. It's a kind of stereotyping people. Then I cannot hear them or make a great conversation or listening to them. Cultural blindness. Differences are ignored and one proceeds as though differences did not exist. There is no need to worry about a person's culture. So we assume that there is no problem and we can face it easily and there is no challenge. If we ignore the real life, we will lose, that's for sure. Cultural imposition. believes that everyone should conform to the majority. We know what's best for you. If you don't like it, you can go elsewhere. So it's a kind of trying to impose something, and this is unhuman. Cultural conflicts in workplace. Cultural conflicts arise because of the differences in values and norms of behavior of people from different cultures. A person acts according to the value and norms of his or her culture. Another person holding a different worldview might interpret his or her behavior from an opposite standpoint. This situation creates misunderstanding and can lead to conflict. You can see one gesture has a different interpretation. As you see here, a person from USA or United Kingdom will translate it or interpret this as it's okay. In Japan, it means money. In Russia, they will interpret it as zero. But in Brazil, they will consider it an insult. Why cross-culture is important? Because of globalization, of course, because of business opportunities which become very huge, job opportunities, and it's very important to sharing views and ideas, especially during crisis period as we have now, this pandemic, coronavirus, COVID-19. Talent improvisation and an understanding of diverse market. It's very important. We are not living alone. We are connected globally, so we need each other. We need to collaborate and cooperate to solve problems and to make a successful deals and project together. Differences to consider in cross-cultural communication. Frequencies of eye contact, assertiveness, use of hands while talking, physical distance between communicators, because in Arab worlds, for example, we prefer no distance or closeness or geographical closeness, but in Europe and United States they do not prefer this kind of no distance, because they will interpret it in a different manner. Speed of speech, the use of first name versus title. Volume of speech, use of facial expression. Potential hotspot in cross-cultural communication. You must know well how to open your conversation and how to close it. Taking turns during conversation. Know how to listen well to your guests. Interrupting. Some of culture accept interruption, but for others it is a sign of unrespect and impolite. Use of silence, because it delivers a message. Appropriate topics of conversation. You must choose it. You take care of humor, especially because sometimes some culture assumes that humor is very bad and refuse to accept, cannot accept it easily. Knowing how much to say, not talking too much nor a little. Sequencing elements during conversation. Skills to overcome differences. Respecting differences and working together. The cooperation. Building trust across cultural boundaries. Understanding body language very well. Connecting with. Tips for cultural communication. Slow down. Asking separate questions. Avoid negative question. Take turns. It's two-way communication, not one way only. Write it down. Be supportive and check meanings. Avoid slangs. Watch your humor and maintain etiquette. Some simple strategies for language, for example, always ask for clarification to eliminate all kind of misunderstanding. In nonverbal communication, don't take it personally and don't try to interpret it from your own lens or from your own cultural meaning. Always educate yourself. Sample strategies. Recognize that you cannot change the culture or yourself overnight. Try not to judge others by your own cultural values. When you're feeling stressed, accept some ambiguity and be patient and forgiving. Here we have 7 pieces of practical advice. Don't assume sameness. We are not the same person. Normal behavior is not universal. What you think is normal in the Chinese culture, for example, is totally different. Yes can have a lot of meaning, can mean many things. Don't assume you were understood when you present your cause, and don't assume that you understand well. So you must ask always for clarification. You don't have to like different behavior, but try to understand where it comes from. And finally, most people do behave rationally, so you just have to discover the rationale behind it. An effective communication is the fault of the sender. Do you agree or disagree? Number 2, what can you do to improve the likelihood that your message will be received and understood as you intended? How can you improve your cross-cultural communication skills? What cross-cultural communication skills have you found most effective and why? Thank you.